I found some fella backstage. Some of you might know him, keen to have a few words. So without further ado, Cllr Steve Pitt.
She did say she was going to say she found a bloke backstage, which is far more Portsmouth, to be perfectly honest. Good morning, conference. It's a pleasure to be able to join you again today as we meet to discuss how we'll be transforming Portsmouth together. Now, I usually begin to think about what I'll include in this speech in the weeks leading up to Christmas. But this year, as you may be aware, the lead up to Christmas was instead dominated by a very different story which has significantly changed what I'm here to say to you today. It's long been the settled view of Portsmouth City Council and its partners across the Solent that a Solent-based devolution deal was key to unlocking the potential of our region. We believed, indeed we still do believe, that the functional economic area of the Solent is the best way to focus on our particular economic, environmental and social needs. However, the government has now ruled that out. Instead, we're effectively directed to form a combined mayoral authority across the whole of the Hampshire and Solent geography. The good news is that in anticipation of some clarity over what government will ultimately announce in their anticipated white paper, Portsmouth, Southampton, the Isle of Wight and Hampshire County Council began having conversations back last summer on what that might look like if, as indeed turned out to be the case, government rejected the Solent option. Therefore, when the white paper was published, we were able to respond at pace and act together to submit a bid to be included on the devolution priority programme. This bid was submitted last Friday, and we anticipate a response from ministers before the end of January, when we will find out if we've been successful. If we have been, Hampshire and the Solent will elect a mayor to lead this new strategic authority in May 2026, next year. The timetable is, frankly, ridiculously tight, but we will work at pace to ensure it can be met. What we'd not expected the white paper to contain was a direction to all district councils across England that they're going to be abolished. That also means that the county councils will cease to exist. What will replace them are new unitary councils, with government saying that these need to be based on approximate populations of 500,000 people. Now, Portsmouth is already a unitary council, and this means that we deliver all services that local residents access, including transport, adult social care, children's services and education that are delivered in other areas by the county councils. Therefore, you would think, as we did initially, that this does not affect us here. How wrong we were. After the white paper was published, further clarifications emerged that made it clear that where there are existing smaller unitary councils, like Portsmouth and indeed Southampton, within the same county areas as district and county councils, regardless of our track records of delivery and financial resilience, we must expand to meet this government target of 500,000 people. As an illustrative example, this could mean that Portsmouth is expected, indeed instructed, by government to expand to include the areas currently under Fareham, Havant, Gosport Borough Councils. Government has been crystal clear that if Portsmouth does not voluntarily agree to this, they will use a ministerial direction to force us to, regardless of the wishes of the existing borough councils or Portsmouth. Now, conference, this is not something that I will willingly support. Portsmouth has a fantastic track record of maintaining its financial stability despite the hugely challenging landscape for local authority funding over the last 15 years or so. And for those of you who come to this conference regularly, you'll know about those challenges because I always explain them to you so that you are fully aware of just what it is that we have to deal with. We've continued to protect services here, the vital services that people rely on but are not statutory. We've kept all our libraries open. We maintained and indeed expanded our community wardens service. We've retained a very strong economic development team, you've already heard from Jane today, We've retained investment and growth in our cultural sector, subsidised key bus routes that residents rely on, invested heavily in specialist education provision, introduced food waste collections, are greening our city and enhancing our sea defences. We invest in tourism, helping to support over 12,000 local jobs. These things are not statutory. They exist because we value them and you value them. If we are forced into a shotgun wedding with our neighbours, none of whom, incidentally, are rushing towards this either. Indeed, Gosport are vehemently opposed to a unitary council of the size being proposed, then these things may all be at risk. Why? Because our neighbours in Hampshire are over £170 million in the red and are currently forecasting insolvency, what is known in local government as delivering a Section 114 notice, by 26-27 next year. Only this week, they've gone to the government for extra financial support. It stands to reason that if the money is not there now, without having to make swingeing cuts to services, then without some very big guarantees of new funding from government, the buck will simply be passed to a new Greater Portsmouth Council to make the cuts that Hampshire County Council have found it too painful to make. And that puts the services that local people here value at risk. For that reason, we will continue to make the case that Portsmouth should be left alone to pursue its own destiny and continue to provide those things that matter to the people who live here. Now, if there are any of you that believe the rhetoric that bigger is better, and that a larger council will be more efficient, and I do understand that from a business perspective why that may appear to make sense, I can tell you that what you might want to consider is what it would feel like if your business was forced to merge with 3 other businesses whose parent company was bankrupt and had been asset stripping those businesses before you took them over. Perhaps that might put a different perspective on how ludicrous this plan by the government actually is, as currently presented. So my message is simple. Until we see the colour of their money and receive categoric assurances about the future protections from ever-rising costs, the statutory services that have been underfunding for decades, hands off Portsmouth. Moving back to the devolution piece, the 4 upper-tier local authorities, Hampshire County Council, Southampton City Council, Isle of Wight Council and Portsmouth City Council, are committed to ensuring that we secure the very best deal for our area. We want to be more sustainable, decarbonise faster, work collaboratively on the big issues of health and care, seek more investment into the marine and maritime, tourism, heritage, cultural and creative, tech and defence sectors, and our high streets. Above all, we want to tackle deprivation in all of its forms. Despite the huge upheaval that is happening, Portsmouth itself is continuing to rise to the challenges we face. Continuing increases in demand in both adults and children's social care are well managed, and we are looking to the government to provide better long-term funding certainty this year as they have promised. Temporary accommodation has become a particularly difficult issue to grapple this year, but our previous actions in buying back former council homes when they come up for resale has protected us from this crisis, which has been hitting other local authorities across the country for several years already. And we have plans to get the current situation under control over the next 2 to 3 years. Ultimately, the government must act to raise social rents more quickly, as the future income they provide gives us the ability to borrow to build those homes. And Homes England need much more grant funding at their disposal to help ensure it's viable for the council and other social housing builders to get building again. What we do not agree with is the near doubling of our housing delivery target to almost 1,100 homes per year, as Portsmouth simply does not have the available land to build that number, as our evidenced local plan demonstrates. We're making progress on our plans to green the city, improve bus services and cycle routes, and we're delighted to be the leading council area in the country for increased bus use in the last year, with a rise of over 20%. This year we will mark a year of literature in Portsmouth, celebrating our rich literary history, but also focusing on the importance of reading as the single greatest life skill that anyone can acquire. Portsmouth Creates will lead this important project with the Council's full support. Creates has gone from strength to strength in the last year, and the funding partnership we set up together has seen less than £40,000 of council money turned into over £250,000 of inward investment from the Arts Council, with another £300,000 secured from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. With Portsmouth remaining a priority place for investment, we hope to continue this momentum into 2025. As you've already heard, we will welcome Cllr, Ocean Race Europe and the Cllr Race back to Portsmouth this year, along with a record number of cruise visits and also a recently signed long extension to the hugely valuable Brittany Ferries contract, and we're delighted to see that happen. The port continues to go from strength to strength, as you've already heard, and shaping is an intrinsic part of that. The Sea Defences team opened the newest section between the Pyramids and the Bryony just in time for Christmas, and the new Windbreaks Gallery at Speaker's Corner has been a huge hit with visitors already. It will feature a new artist 3 times a year. Work is now underway on the section between Blue Reef and Hover Travel and is expected to complete in the middle of 2026. We finally secured planning permission for the Bransbury Park Leisure Centre, taking our total investment in renewing leisure facilities in our city to over £40 million, and work will begin late summer. The regeneration of the Lido is progressing well, and it will open later this year with a new operator in time for its 90th birthday. We finally have a settled view from government on what they want local authorities to do about recycling, and I hope to see the new Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF as it's often referred to. I liked it when it was a super MRF, because then we called it a Smurf. I hope to see that new facility in Eastleigh underway as soon as possible. Current projections would see us collecting glass and all types of plastics alongside all the current items from your doorsteps before the end of 2027. It's essential that there are no further delays, and I will do all I can to keep pushing this forwards with my colleague, Councillor Dave Ashmore. Now, we've heard already from the business pillar team this morning about some of the amazing work that's going on, and I do want to tip my hat to the collective efforts of all of the people who feed into that, whether it's the opening of the new Enterprise Centre at the north of Commercial Road, the pop-up in Cascades in partnership with Cascades and Flood, or the new one in partnership with Landsec at Gunwharf Quays, the brilliant Portsmouth Business Support Service with its single front door to signpost people to the help that they actually need, the Eat the Island event that's working with our hospitality trade. All of these things make an enormous difference. And the small business grants, I've already seen firsthand the difference that those small amounts of money can actually make, and we've heard that from Luca this morning. So thank you to everybody that plays such an important part in helping to nurture and encourage our new businesses, as well as our existing businesses who do so much to work together and help each other. Preparations are also underway to mark the centenary of Portsmouth becoming a city in 2026, and I can exclusively today, wait for it, unveil the new logo for 2026. There we go. This will be a fantastic opportunity for us all to come together and celebrate what makes us distinct and special, whilst also seizing the opportunity to make significant progress in advancing our joint city vision aims, our aims, not the council's, ours, moving the city towards those shared aims of making Portsmouth a city of easy travel, which is happy and healthy, rich in culture and creativity, focused on the importance of lifelong learning, greening, and developing a thriving economy. We have had a huge response to our call for suggestions, and there have been some brilliant ones, as to what you would like to see delivered by both the council and all our partners next year, and I'm excited to see this full programme of events and activities emerge later in 2025. Perhaps there's an irony that at the very time that Portsmouth is preparing to mark such a significant anniversary in its history, its very future is thrown into question. But I am determined that we remain focused on delivering our work, focused on local people and focused on our partnership role with you and within Team Portsmouth, moving Portsmouth inexorably forwards together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. An awful lot going on the council, and what I would say at the moment is the communication that's coming out of the council has been hugely positive. So if you do have a lot of questions, there's a lot of information going out, and do sign up to their newsletter. That's just a resident throwing in a 2p there. So thank you very much, Steve. And we are all, I think it's fair to say, here to support you in the council as you go through the changes, but also to make the most of being 100 years old. It's a great opportunity again to come together as a city.